Well, welcome to Leading Church with Pastor Steve Kelly. Today we're talking on daddy issues. As leaders, if we're going to be resilient leaders in turbulent times, we've got to deal with our daddy issues. Well, welcome again to Leading Church with Pastor Steve Kelly. It's great to see you, Steve.
It's nice to see you, Mark.
We've
been whipping ships in the night, you and
we
I.
We have. You've been one place, the other. We're going together.
And you've been the other. But we're doing a plane trip
That's exactly right.
on Sunday.
That's right.
Down under.
That's right.
To Australia, going to the ACC conference.
Don't
It's
we
going to be
love
awesome.
those plane trips? But anyway,
Yes, we do.
It's great when you get there.
My wife's grandmother turns 103 the day we do this recording today.
Oh, wow.
103.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Sharon's going to outlive me.
Well, I don't know what to say about that. That
She
might be
will.
good, that might be bad, but who knows. But today we're going to continue on about resilient leadership, and we're really going to talk about a topic that I think is really going to help people, and that's about dealing with your daddy issues.
You sound when you said I think is going to help people, you sound hesitant there, Mark.
Well, it is going to help people. I don't like being so dramatic.
Right, okay.
But anyway, daddy issues. So many leaders today are dealing with stuff they don't even realize it.
Yep.
But they're coming from broken homes, absent fathers, all the things that have created toxic masculinity, feminism, you name it, that's created.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And so they end up with this strange worldview.
Well, and look what's happening in culture today. There's this anti-masculine,
Right.
and there's this pushback
Right.
on the man being a man.
Yeah.
And there's an equal pushback starting to happen the other way now, where we're sort of going, no, let's celebrate
and
this.
Swung.
Yeah.
The people that are on the other side are swung so far.
Yeah.
To the. Yeah. We've lost ground instead of being in the middle.
And all you got to do is go to Scripture. That's all you got to do. Just
That's
go to
the
Scripture.
answer to everything, isn't it?
I mean, God calls himself, of all the names that he could identify himself, Abba.
Yeah.
Abba, Father, Daddy.
Isn't that wild?
It is. And
there's a lot of pushback on that. People don't like that.
Good. God's not asking anybody. He's not looking for anyone's permission. Yeah. God doesn't need our help.
Yeah.
He reveals himself as Father.
Right.
Jesus reveals himself as the Son. God has instituted the concept of family.
Right.
He said, for this reason, a man shall leave his mother and his father and be joined to his wife. That's God's plan.
Right.
Culture can mess with it, and they do.
Yeah, they do.
And we don't even know what a male or a female is anymore. But that's all. That doesn't shock me. That's going back to the garden. I'm going to say a crass word again. Screw you, God. We'll decide what's right and wrong.
Podcast.
But that's human nature.
That is so
God,
true.
don't tell me how to live. I'll make my own choices,
Yeah.
and that's why we ended up out of the garden.
Yeah.
We
want to define. We want to define what is right and wrong.
Yes.
And yet that's not in our world. That's not in our prerogative.
So let's take the first couple, Adam and Eve. Okay, talking about the resilient leader. Pastors struggle with this. They have problems with people they lead because they hurt people and they didn't know they hurt them. They didn't mean to hurt them.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's a part of us that thinks, well, come on, you need to suck it up, buttercup. And yet there's truth to that.
Yes.
But how do you build that kind of resilience in
Right.
people? And I think let's start with the premise. Jesus said, our Father. He taught us to pray, our Father who art in heaven.
Yeah.
God reveals himself as a father of
Yes.
all the things, creator, supreme, sovereign, all
Yes.
that, yet he reveals himself. Jesus said, when we pray, this is how you pray, our Father. I love that, our Father, not my Father, not your Father, our Father, collective, the world.
Yes.
I love to remind people in America here, and I know this broadcast goes way beyond
All
America,
across the world,
but I love it because I go, look, God's not a Republican. God's not a Democrat.
He's not even American.
He's not even American. He's
especially not Australian.
If you cannot recognize somebody from another culture,
right,
another color of a race or another color, and you cannot recognize them as your brother, then he's not our father. Then he's not your father.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he can't be your father if you don't know he's our father.
Right.
So
Whoa.
so we start with that, and then we go into, I love it, Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. And here is Cain and here is Abel, and they're both give an offering.
Mm-hmm.
And we know this story, and pastors use this story all the time
Mm-hmm.
to teach people the principle of giving.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we miss something. I love it. It says on Cain, Cain brought what? He brought some of the of his produce. Abel brought the first fruits. And so the Bible says that on Abel's offering, he looked with favor. And on Cain's offering, he didn't look with favor. And Cain is angry.
Yes.
And God the Father asked Cain, why are you angry? God, imagine God asking something, why are you angry? Matter of fact, another translation says, why are you downcast?
Yes.
He's depressed.
Yes.
Isn't it funny how we can let money affect our emotions and rule our emotions?
Yeah. Oh, and even the opinions of the important people in our life that we disappoint in our whatever that rules us as well.
Oh, yeah. So, yes. But here's what happens. God says, if you do what's right, I have not favored Abel. I have rejected your offering. Listen to what he said now.
Come on.
I'm not rejecting you,
Yes.
Father.
Yes.
I'm not rejecting you. You're taking this personal.
Right.
If you do what's right, I'll
Right.
accept you.
Right.
And I love that here because there's daddy issue in the garden. Here is Cain feeling like God is favoring.
Yeah.
And yet God says, I accepted Abel's offering because he put me first. You didn't.
Right.
I'm not rejecting you. I'm rejecting your offering.
Right.
And then he says, sin, oh, look how close this sits, is crouching at the door. Why are you angry? Why are you downcast? I'm not rejecting you. I'm rejecting what you gave me. You didn't put me first.
Right.
And so that's a daddy issue. Okay? And then I want you to go to David and think about David with his father. And there's a lot of
stuff in there,
stuff in there to look at. But the thought is Jesse never crossed his mind to get David out of the field. When the prophet Samuel
once.
came and said, get all your sons, and he never got David.
Yeah. And even when he did, it was sort of like, oh yeah, I've got this other one.
Yeah, yes. And there's
like
a
a
lot of speculation
little
as to whether
throwaway
David was
line.
even a legitimate son because of that.
Yeah.
But then you
Imagine
think about
growing up with that.
well, yes, and think about his brothers who despised him when he came to the battlefield, and David was the only one. And so then you read the book of Proverbs. My gosh, Mark, the whole book of Proverbs is all about my son, listen to me.
Yes.
It's fathers trying to teach sons
Right.
because God knows there is so much of that.
Yeah.
You know, and all of culture is trying to remove the man, the dad, out of family to
Right.
not be the voice because God knows. And so you think about, think about Jacob and Esau, and you think about, Jacob was a bit of a mummy's boy. He was at home making soup, and Esau's out there hunting.
Nothing wrong with making soup.
There's nothing wrong with it. No, but think about it. The father more now. Esau was the firstborn son, and Jacob had some daddy issues. He had to lie to his father
Right.
with the mother's permission and perspective on how to do it,
Right.
to appear as Esau, to
Right.
get something he wanted, and just dad issues.
Yeah.
Then you think about Joseph. The Bible's full of daddy issues.
Isn't it?
Joseph, the coat of many colors.
Yeah.
And they despised him
Yeah.
because of it.
Yeah.
And there's
totally explosive family situation.
yes.
Yeah.
And then there's a really good teaching. I think it's even in a book by Casey Trick called Orphan's Heart. Mm-hmm. And it's a really good thing to look at. And so when I've led people and tried to create a leadership culture, as we talked about as
Right.
one of our core values
That's
on a
right.
previous podcast, I've noticed that some young men aren't as resilient as they need to be.
Yeah.
And when I correct them,
Yeah.
see what's happened is when you're raising up leaders, you got to look and ask yourself, what kind of family origin does this young man come from? That's not to say we don't raise up young women, but, that opportunity is more afforded in the overall team and with our girls raising up. But we raise up men and women.
Right.
But in terms of my personal one-on-one relationship with raising up young men, I'm always looking at what's your family background?
Yeah.
Do you come from a family with a mother and father? I think my own son-in-law Jared, who was raised by his mum because his father wasn't in his life. At a young age, father and the mother sadly ended up in a divorced life, and Jared was raised by his mum.
Yeah.
His mum did a great job.
Yeah, she did.
I think about my daughter-in-law, Brooke. She, her father and her mother, they got separated at a very young age, and she was raised by her dad. I got to tell you, one of the best dads you'll ever meet in raising two great girls. But it's worthwhile looking into the family background, because there's this desire within a young man to please his father.
Right.
There's a lot in that I won't get into, but that's, I think, one of the triggers for, the confusion of homosexuality is we are designed by God to have this same-sex love.
Right.
That love of a father
Right.
that a son craves, and we're designed by God to have that affirmation. Remember, God said when Jesus was baptized, "Behold, this is my son,
Right.
in whom I will please." That
yeah.
voice of affirmation,
Yeah.
that voice of identity,
Yeah.
that voice of approval
Yeah.
that came from God to his son.
Yeah.
And God instituted the whole concept of family, male, female, husband, father. But if that voice is missing, then these young boys grow up craving that and then get confused.
Right.
There's more to it, I know, but that is certainly an aspect that's real.
It's certainly worthwhile for people to actually look at.
And
think
I'm not talking about all young men that had no father have a greater propensity toward homeless, but the confusion, the enemy can take advantage of it.
Right.
And often I've talked to, you and I both have talked to people who were confused in those areas. And that's one of my first questions. How did you get on with your dad? There's usually some real anger, bitterness, resentment. Not always.
Yeah, not always. That's right.
Yeah. So you think about this, and I think about raising up these young men, and I say, tell me, was Dad present? And sometimes Dad's present, but was Dad present? Do you know what I mean? Because he was there doesn't mean he was there.
Right.
My dad was present, but he was an alcoholic. He lived at the bar. He owned a bar.
Right.
I don't really remember my father in my early years at all.
Right.
He was never home. And when he was home, he was passed out drunk. And by the way, so was my mother. Interesting family to grow up in, let me tell you. And so I got all these thoughts going through my head. The devil's greatest plan is to take the man out of the family.
Yeah.
And then what you end up having is a mother who's being protective, understandably.
Yes.
And what happens is every mother has to be careful she's not guilty of smother.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when a dad's not present, they've not been taught to be rough and tough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's a lot of
And
new
take some
research
hits
on
and
that.
take some correction and get back up.
Yeah.
Resilience.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
if their father rejected them, then they come into a church leadership, a pastor, and they confuse the role of pastor to father. So when the pastor corrects this young man, he has all this feeling of rejection like Cain.
Yeah. Just like Cain.
And you're rejecting me. No, I'm not rejecting you. I'm rejecting
Right.
the action,
Yeah.
and I'm correcting it.
Yeah.
And
which is that whole thing of, this is who I am.
Yes.
Therefore, you're rejecting me. Rather than, no, we're all.
it's
we're
the
all
daddy
broken.
issue.
Yeah.
No, it's completely the daddy issue. It's dad. And here's the thought I was going to go at. For me, Sharon and I, in our early years of marriage, thank God my mum and dad, even though it was a turbulent life, they stayed together.
Yeah.
They stuck it out. And I got to tell you, Mum had good reason to walk out on that many times. Many times. I still marvel at her ability to just hang in there. here's what happens. Sharon and I, in my family, the way I was raised is he who yells the loudest wins, Irish. And so when I got married, I would have these arguments with Sharon.
Right.
And I'd get so angry
Yeah.
that I'd just walk out. Mm-hmm. And that's what my dad did. He just walked out. Family origin has a lot to play with how we behave. And so I noticed with Sharon, I just walk out. And I heard one time somebody say, a walkout is planting a seed of divorce. And I went, oh, it is. It's embryonic of I'm leaving you.
Yeah.
And when I heard
a demonstration of it.
It captured me. And I said, I will never walk out like that again. I may have to leave the conversation.
Right.
I may have to diffuse it. And there's been times when I've said, hey, Sharon, I love you. And we can't work this out. And I want to tell you, we are going to work it out. But right now, I have no more words other than anything I'll regret.
Yes.
And so I just going to, and maybe it's just too late at night.
Yeah.
And the Bible says, never let the sun go down where you're still angry.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to say, I love you, and I want you to know we're going to work this out, but now's not the time. We may need to talk to someone about this issue because clearly we've been unable. And now when I think about it, they were so stupid. So, but they were at the time,
Yeah.
you know, powerful.
Yeah.
So I think about how I was raised, and my father was an alcoholic, so I think I had some daddy issues. My biggest thing I think was rejection, abandonment, fear.
Yeah.
I covered that up very well with being very
Bravado,
toxic, unhealthy, trying to prove.
Yeah. We all have
myself.
something like that.
And so I remember my dad, when he got sober, he went out and I got two older brothers, and he thought, I need to reconnect with my sons. And I don't know how old I was. Early, maybe 12, maybe 13. I can't remember. But I remember he brought each of us 3 sets of golf clubs. So I was talking to my brother Dennis about this just the other day. And I said, do you remember, Dennis, when Dad brought us golf clubs? He goes, yeah. And I said, he took us to this place in Sydney, this golf course that was right by a cemetery. Matter of fact, it was Rookwood Cemetery.
I was going to say Rookwood.
And which is the biggest cemetery, I think, then in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
Crookers Rookwood, that's right. And so my dad's trying to reconnect with me. But I was so angry at my dad. I grew up saying, I will never, ever do to my kids what my dad did to me.
Yeah.
Never home.
Bad words to say.
I remember having so much bitterness and anger at my dad. And I knew what he was trying to do. He was trying to reconnect with us. Mm-hmm. And I looked at my dad with these golf clubs. I said, Dad, I know what you're trying to do. I want you to look over there into that cemetery. See all those graves? You got a better chance of connecting with them than you'll ever have with me.
Such
and
kind
I think
words.
about what I said, but I meant every word of it at the time. Now I can't believe those words come out of my mouth, but they were real.
Yeah.
And so for me to trust an authority male leader when I had, when I grew up the way I have. So I say to young people today, the way in which I think you can already have a head start in succeeding is just by be determined to be a little bit more resilient than everybody else.
Yeah.
And the bar
Isn't it funny?
has never been lower. It's never been lower.
It's so
People
true.
are so sensitive, so delicate, and yet, I'm talking that this is a podcast for leaders.
Yes.
This starts with you. Do you have daddy issues?
Yeah.
Do you need healing in this area of your life? Because if you do, you're going to actually injure another generation by just going, get over it. Do you know what I mean? And so I love to find out more about family origin, family background.
Because that was our generation. Just get over it.
Yeah, just totally.
Yeah.
And strong leaders can hurt softer, younger leaders, and there can be spiritual abuse. And so we got to manage expectations. So I got guys who work with me, and I say, I'm going to be at times you're going to meet the leader, Steve, and other times you're going to meet Steve, and sometimes I'm just going to be really busy, and I'm just going to be blunt, short, and sharp. I don't want you to think I'm mad with you. And I'm trying to help them understand, and I talked to my assistant. She's a sweet young girl. She's 22, 23 years old.
She's
I said,
fantastic.
when you call me, I want you to learn from my tone of voice. If I go, hey, what's up? That means I'm really busy, but I'm taking your call. Mm-hmm. But we're not doing all the normal,
Yeah.
know.
Chit chat.
Yeah.
No chit chat.
What do you need? I'll give you your answer.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nothing, what's the word?
There's nothing personal in it.
Nothing personal. It's just, I'm busy. And that's not to say she's not.
No.
And because I'm taking a call, I know she needs answers from me.
Yeah.
And she's so sweet. She is one of the most resilient people I know. So sometimes you have to choose carefully who's going to work in and who can handle
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Because if you put people in there that can't handle you,
Yes.
it's not going to be good for you or them.
No.
And so daddy issues are a big thing, and family origin. Do you come from a broken background? Because you'll need to be a little bit more caring, a little bit kinder. I don't remember much from Bible college, Mark. I really don't. I'm ashamed to admit.
Well,
But I do have a nice little diploma on the wall. I'm very proud of it. But I do remember, I can't remember who said it, but somebody said, whenever you get up to preach to people and talk to people, you need to see a sign written across their foreheads. I've never forgotten this. God's people handle with care. Isn't that wonderful?
that is.
God's people handle with care.
Yeah.
I pray I never forget that.
Yeah.
And I don't apologize for being a strong leader. I do think as you get older, you mellow. I think, after I had grandkids, I think I changed.
Yeah.
I think I became a different leader.
Yeah.
And I love that because our Bible talks about you got to have a different spirit.
Yeah.
I'm no less fiery. People joke about my steely blues. I get angry. The Bible says, be angry, sin not. I make sure to the best I don't allow my anger to turn to sin. Jesus drove out the money changers and he made a whip. And I think there's a place for righteous anger.
Yeah. He sat down.
Yeah.
He put it together.
So to me, I think about in the garden, and no wonder Paul says you have many teachers, but not many fathers. And we need to be spiritual fathers. We need to be good leaders. And to be a good leader is to be aware of this orphan's heart, to be aware of this daddy issue, and help people become more resilient. But you know what that means?
Yeah.
You're going to have conversations with these people. You got to get to know them. You got to get to know their family. You got to get to know their brothers, the sisters, the mother, the father. We had a young guy on team here whose father was murdered. Do you know what I mean? And let me tell you, that's going to do some real heartbreak. And so I realized for him, if ever there's someone I see God's people handle with care, do you know what I mean? Father taken away from him. Another guy on team, his brother was all sorts of mental health, addictive personality, was in a rehab during COVID, got COVID and was moved out of the rehab because he had COVID, ended up in a hotel and overdosed, lost his brother. Do you know what I mean? And so that's when you give them time. They're the moments you sit down, tell me how you're doing. And you're not just the leader trying to get things out of people.
Yeah.
But you're showing kindness and compassion. They're the defining moments.
Yeah.
And I remember I was given advice by Paul Benithan.
Oh, okay.
And he said, Steve,
Great guy.
3 keys to a successful ministry with longevity. Number 1, never lose a sense of humor. And I've never forgotten that. Number 2, love people. Love them. And he goes, and if you love them and you genuinely love them, they'll follow you.
Yeah.
Even if you make mistakes.
Right.
They'll put up with your mistakes because they know you love them. And never lose a sense of humor, love people, and never take things personally. So some people are going to despise you and be jealous of you because of the gift and the anointing and the call that's on your life. And don't take that personal. Don't let it get to you.
Yeah.
You will not be greater than your master. That's not permission to be inconsiderate, you know what I mean? But it has helped me stay and keep my head in the game, because I grew up from a broken family. So I had daddy issues.
Yeah.
And I still, family origin comes into play today. It still affects me. Not in a negative way, but it's just part of how you're brought up.
Yeah.
So I like this subject here, and I think the Bible has so much to say about it.
Yeah. So as a leader, knowing your own issues like that,
Yes.
and then being aware of other people's issues,
Yeah.
and being able to be sensitive in that. you
Yeah.
know. I've always marveled at, the paralyzed man that got healed, with the 4 guys that brought him along. Jesus said to that guy, get up, but then he said, pick up your mat,
Yeah.
which means clean up your mess.
Yeah.
Like, deal with your stuff,
Yep.
which I don't think as Christians we've done that really well. We think, oh, well, God's
Yeah.
going to heal me, or God's whatever.
Yep.
But that is the context of salvation, is about actually dealing with the stuff.
Yep.
And as leaders, helping people to deal with their stuff is not going to be successful if you're not dealing with your own stuff and
Yes.
being open and accountable for that in your
Yeah.
own life. It's a hard issue, what you're talking about. This whole thing about people having issues that have come from their family of origin, their father,
Yeah.
recognizing that, and then helping people develop through that,
But see, it's the greatest challenge for pastors, I think, today.
especially today.
Everywhere I go, people say, talk about this.
Yeah.
And because they've all seen generations raised up, they've been hurt, sensitive,
Yeah.
and they don't understand what that is. I love what you said there, because this is me, and this will sound harsh, but I think you're either up or you're getting up or you're picking up
Right.
or you're walking.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
That's exactly right.
So get up. So you're either getting up or you're picking up or you're walking.
Yeah.
And that sounds, but that means get up means, yeah, you've been knocked down,
Yeah.
but you get back up again.
Right.
And we got to help people get back up and overcome the disappointments and setbacks. But often, if we're not careful, we can be the ones creating
Yeah.
the knockdown
Right.
because we underestimated them.
Yeah. I think, Blanchard came up with this idea of situational leadership, which is not quite about what we're talking about, but the concept is wherein if you want to get someone to do something and get a task or something achieved, you've got to figure out who you're leading,
Yep.
where they're at,
Yep.
and then speak to where they're at and lead them from where they're at to get them to where they need to be.
Yes.
And I think that's where in leadership, if we don't take that into consideration,
Yep.
who are we leading? Who are we? Where's, what is our normal style to be able to change gears?
Yep.
That's a tricky thing to do as a leader.
Yep.
I think that's one of the hardest things to do as a leader, change gears and go, okay, I've got to help this person, first of all, to be able to deal with me. Secondly, to be able to deal with their own life. And then we've
Mark.
got to get to where we need to be with Jesus.
Like I have 3 kids. I've got a beautiful daughter who
Yeah.
Josh and Sam say she's the favoured one. But whatever they think, that it's so offensive to
Right.
think that I would love one more than the other.
Yeah.
But you love them different.
That's exactly right.
And here's the thing: Josh is alpha male.
Right.
So if I spoke to Josh in a nice, kind, little, voice, he's going to headbutt me, and we're going to go at it.
Yeah.
And he is an alpha male, but I'm dad.
I have noticed that.
Yeah. And you've seen he and I go at it at times,
Yeah.
and I love it, and I can handle him.
That's right.
And he has honor and respect.
That's
so don't-
exactly right.
So,
That's
but
exactly
Sam,
right.
if I spoke to Sam, anything close to that, Sam is more sensitive. Sam is more like, he's more
Yeah.
caring.
Yeah.
He's softer. If I spoke to Sam, I'd crush him.
Yeah.
And I learned early days, I love my kids. I don't want to crush my kids. So I've had to adjust to my 2 different sons,
Yeah.
how I speak to them. Well, why wouldn't you, Pastor, do the same thing for the people you lead?
Isn't that the truth?
If you love them. Now, that's not to say, you're going to be wiping their nose.
No.
And, do you know what I mean? But you are making consideration and adjustment
Right.
based on who you're leading
Right.
and what motivates them,
Right.
so you can get the best out of them.
Right.
So to me, I just think, okay, I love my kids. And if I love my kids, I'm going to figure out a wise man wins souls.
That's so true. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Well, thanks, Pastor Steve. Got a lot to consider, a lot to think about, and I'm sure there's a lot more we could continue on in this topic. But suffice to say, I think we've given people some good things to think about.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
It's a pleasure.
Together.